At the peak of the coronavirus pandemic, Uganda's parliament passed a supplementary budget of 923 billion shillings. 284 billion shillings was allocated to government's response to the coronavirus pandemic. Members of parliament allocated themselves 10 billion shillings, a vote they argued was to respond to the demands of the people from their constituencies. This money was never part of the budget which was presented by the Ministry of Finance. This created a sharp divide between the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature.
We are under attack from the executive and also from the judiciary.
There is no attack by the judiciary on Parliament.
You have entered yourselves into a trap.
But how did we get here? How did Parliament maneuver past all the checks and balances in Uganda's laws to allocate themselves money? Bottom line,
that the mandatory report to be adopted, those in favor say aye, the contrary no. No subject. Put the question that the mandatory report to be adopted, those in favor say aye, the contrary no. Ayes have it.
The ayes have it. My name is Sserwanja. I am an investigative journalist. Over the last couple of weeks, I have examined several documents from Parliament on this budget, looked at hours of footage that was recorded in the National Assembly, and conducted several interviews to uncover a mission well planned and well executed. First, we shall examine the footage and the Hansard that was recorded on the 7th of April 2020, the day the legislators passed the supplementary budget for clues. According to the Hansard, which is the official transcription of everything said on the floor of Parliament, the Speaker Rebecca Kadaga starts off with an apology for starting at 3 p.m. as opposed to the official 2 p.m. She says, and I quote, "I welcome you to this afternoon sitting. I do apologize for the late start. We had a lengthy commission meeting." End of quote. We shall come back to the Speaker's opening statement later on in this investigation. It is also important to note that the attendance of members of Parliament on this day was higher than the usual, especially during this period of the coronavirus pandemic when social distancing is strongly recommended. There were a number of issues to be discussed that day on the order paper, which took the better part of the afternoon sitting. At 5:20 p.m., the Speaker requested MPs to postpone the debate on the supplementary budget to Wednesday, 8th of April, as it was late and curfew time of 7 p.m. was drawing near.
Can we do them first thing tomorrow? It's 5:20.
However, there was unusually overwhelming support for the House to proceed.
I think we can go in for another 40 minutes. Because after all, there is no traffic jam. There is no traffic jam. And we help the Minister of Health. What I appeal to colleagues and Honorable Speaker is we limit the debate.
It was time for the chairperson of the Budget Committee to present his report on the supplementary budget. It should be noted that the Budget Committee spent weeks discussing the supplementary budget, penned the report, which was later on signed by the majority of the members. There was also a minority report from the members who dissented from the main view. Both reports had been sent to the clerk to Parliament and circulated to the iPads of the MPs earlier in the day. What catches my eye is what the chairperson of the Budget Committee, Amos Lugolobi, said in the first minutes of his submission.
Madam Speaker, we saturated the report. But after saturating the report, we got new information. And that information necessitated amending our original report. I beg to move those amendments before I present the entire report.
So I ask, if the main report had already been signed and sent out to the MPs, why is Amos Lugolobi making amendments in the report on the floor of Parliament, changing figures which had been agreed upon by the entire committee? In fact, a Root South member of Parliament, Jonathan Oduru, raised this issue on the floor.
So I rose up on the point of procedure Because under our rules of procedure, the chairman presents a report of the committee. He doesn't present his own report. So by stating that the amendments were not originating from the committee discussion, it meant we were floating the rules of procedure.
In his defense, Lugolobi said all amendments contained in the document were duly signed. This answer convinced the Speaker, asking Honorable Lugolobi to proceed.
Yes, the next amendment is on page 23, Ministry of Health. The figure we had before is 50 billion shillings, 9 million shillings, 794,724. That figure has been replaced by a new figure, which is 40 billion shillings, 83 million, 434,724.
These figures might be confusing, but what Amos Lugolobi is saying is that he's deducting 10 billion shillings from the Ministry of Health vote, which was 104 billion shillings in the original committee report, and leaving them with 94 billion shillings.
Under that schedule, column 3, at the bottom of the page, we are creating a new figure there of 10 billion shillings.
Putting it clear, Lugolobi then allocates 10 billion shillings to the Parliamentary Commission.
Which offends Rule 2.
This caught some members of the committee by surprise.
We are unequivocally in any way related to that amendment because we are hearing it here on the floor for the first time. That figure, Right Honourable Speaker, I swear before God, it was never circulated to all the members. And all we are trying to say, in a smart way, we should have been informed so that we reconcile in our minds how to incorporate that particular amendment to the main body of the report.
2020, where do we lay?
It should also be noted that all through his submission, the chairperson of the Budget Committee did not give justification for the 10 billion shillings allocated to the Parliamentary Commission.
The last amendment on the schedule comes on page 28.
Madam Speaker, let me be very clear.
Ntungamu Municipality Legislator Gerard Karuhanga, who led the team with the minority report, was given an opportunity to present his report amidst resistance from some legislators.
Point of order? There's a point of order. Part A, Madam Speaker, is making out a case of how we are inadequately facilitating the health sector vis-a-vis the pandemic and its magnitude. Can I go to Part B, Madam Speaker?
Clarification.
The honorable member who is presenting a minority report has put it to this house that he has never heard about the report. Is hearing about it here for the first time. For the first time, he's hearing about this report from here. Now, if he's hearing about it for the first time, is he right to comment about something which he has heard for the first time? I beg the clarification.
Amidst this heated debate, Buzaya County Legislator Isaac Musumba makes an eye-catching submission.
We need more than an hour to get home. I therefore want to propose, Madam Speaker, a motion that the question be put. Thank you.
Procedure. We want to get out of this house with a smart face. We don't want anybody to blackmail the image of Parliament.
Honourable members, I put the question.
Madam Speaker, I thought the principle of natural justice procedure, Madam Speaker, procedure, Madam Speaker. The chair, I apologize. Why the amendment was done without giving the figure to all the members. Please don't do mafia on some of us. No, but you can't talk to me as
You can't talk as if we are kids. We are all men.
This is followed by another heated debate.
Honour members, I put the question that the minority report to be adopted. Those in favour say aye. The contrary, no. No subject. Put the question that the majority report be adopted. Those in favour say aye. The contrary, no. I submit.
Members of Parliament passed a supplementary budget of 923 billion shillings without being debated to the core. What happened in plenary leaves glaring clues which are important for this investigation. My attention then turns to what happened in the Parliamentary Commission meeting. The meeting, I discover, was chaired by the Speaker of Parliament, Rebecca Kadaga, the Second Deputy Prime Minister, Moses Ali, the Finance Minister, David Bahati, the 4 backbencher commissioners, including the Bukoli Central Member of Parliament, Solomon Sserwanja, Safia Naluke Juko, the National People with Disability Representative, Buheju County Member of Parliament, Francis Mwijuche, and Workers MP, Arina Iterwa Kajara. Solomon Sserwanja admitted that among the many issues discussed during the commission meeting that day was how to mobilize resources for MPs to respond to the pressures from the constituencies due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
MPs had students stranded in Kampala, MPs had ambulances to fuel, MPs had people calling who are stuck, border groups, several groups were stuck. MPs were basically stuck, running up and down, and even the 20 million. It was just a drop in an ocean.
Being the custodians of the law, the Parliamentary Commission was alive to the fact that they missed out on an opportunity to include the Parliamentary Commission into the main supplementary budget, which was presented by Finance Minister David Bahati.
I think why we wanted to pass this money through the Parliamentary Commission and directly through MPs because of handling, quick handling. We wanted quick response, quick action.
Another commissioner, Francis Mwijuche, also confirms the meeting.
After having failed to agree again with the executive on how we should come in as members of parliament, but also on having a national plan. So, and we were advised by the Minister of Finance on how to do it in the commission meeting. So we came up with an idea for which we went to the budget committee.
What did the Minister of Finance advise you?
Exactly what we did.
From Mwijuche's submission, this is where the plan was conceptualized. The challenge to the Parliamentary Commission at this time was that the Commission did not have a vote, since it's not one of the institutions that the Finance Minister David Bahati and his team had planned for in the supplementary budget. Once the Commission was ready, they summoned the chairperson of the Budget Committee, Amos Lugolobi, to appear before the Commission. So you tasked the chairperson Budget Committee, Honorable Lugolobi, to look for 10 billion shillings.
Yes, for members of
within the commission.
Yes. Please go and have that reflected on your budget, and so we could discuss it in the plenary, and that is what happened. So,
which was supported by the executive, that's the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance.
Minister of Finance.
What is also critical to this investigation was the time at which Amos Lugolobi was summoned to appear before the commission. What time was that meeting?
We started at 10 up to around 1, so we had a meeting. I can't recall exactly when the chairman came in, but that was a meeting we had earlier before the plenary.
I looked out for Amos Lugolobi, the chairperson of the committee, to verify these leads. First, I asked him to recollect what happened on that day, the 7th of April.
So on that day, that morning, we signed the final report of the committee. After signing the report, of course, we present it for circulation, via our iPads. So they were sent to the server, it circulated.
This confirms that the committee had finalized their report, signed it, and circulated it to members of parliament before he appeared in the Parliamentary Commission.
These MPs had raised a need that they are supported by the government. And the Parliamentary Commission, which I mentioned comprises government and parliament itself, had sat to consider several issues, including that one. And so they had taken a decision about the support to members of parliament, which was fully justified, and I was invited in that meeting to discuss the possibility of effecting it.
With advice from the Minister of Finance and the entire commission, Lugolobi had to quickly look at where he could get the 10 billion shillings. He aimed for the soft target.
So we had provided an amount of 104 billion from the 62 billion that had been requested. So when the need for the parliamentary commission came, we had adjusted what the total we had supplied to the Ministry of Health or the health sector. We had adjusted it by 10 billion. In other words, reducing it by 10 billion, which we supplied to the parliamentary commission as statutory expenditure. So on that day, I went back to my committee. I invited them back into the committee meeting, and we agreed to adjust the budget the way the commission had requested.
At this time, the clock is ticking towards 2 p.m., which is the official time that MPs have to sit for the plenary session. It was a long and tough call for the commission to ask Amos Lugolobi to execute this mission. I put Commissioner Muijuche to task to explain how they wanted this to be achieved.
We are lucky that the Minister of Finance was able to advise and say, yes, in the circumstances, look at this. Don't get a figure above the already provided figure, but you can work within the range of what's already provided for. And so now this was not up to us as a commission, it was up to the committee. So the committee was sitting then.
First of all, it's not true that the committee was sitting then, because they had already finalized their report, sent it on members of parliament's email, duly signed by members, and there was a minority report. So it is not true that the committee was sitting at that time.
The committee was sitting at that time, and that's why they were able to find the figures and have a report signed.
What you did is, after you summoned the chairperson of the budget committee, put him under pressure to look for 10 billion shillings. He left and he had to reconvene and look for a member of parliament to sign an addendum to a report which was already sent to members of parliament.
Where I am a member of the commission. If you don't want to get facts from me, then I'll ask you to give the facts.
It is not that. I'm just asking you to tell the truth.
Solomon, I think you're now, I don't know whether you want to be a journalist or you want to be a member of parliament, you want to be a commissioner.
I want the truth. I'm asking questions here.
No.
I turned to Lugolobi, the chairperson of the budget committee, to explain how he was going to execute the orders of his boss. This is in light of the fact that the final committee report was already signed and circulated to MPs earlier in the day.
We reconvene at around 12:30, and we agree that let's adopt the amendment. So we wrote a separate amendment in a separate report. I don't know how to explain this. This supplementary was not only about COVID. Yeah, there were other expenditure items in the main report. Now, this addendum to the report, only contained changes relating to the 10 billion. Which the commission felt should be appropriated.
And you did that for the COVID budget?
Yes. So that members endorsed the idea and a written statement about that amendment.
How did you make that amendment?
Now, this is how I did it. After the other report had circulated, we circulated the amendment also. At the same time, yes, separately.
To MPs?
To MPs on the server. Now we go in the plenary, and I inform the House that you are looking at two reports. One of the reports is a smaller report that should get into the main report. Because we had already saturated the main report, there was no way we could integrate these numbers at our level down there. So I have to do it here, to enter these numbers into the main report, because that amendment was affecting the main report.
It was rush hour for Amos Lugolobi as time ran out. There was no time to recall the already circulated budget report. Touching any figure would alter the rest of the budget, and this required time to clean up. Lugolobi, however, says he had the backing of the committee.
They signed, and it's there signed, duly signed. In fact, that matter was raised on the floor. That is that amendment endorsed by the members of the committee? I said yes, and I demonstrated it to them. I waved it, and so everybody saw. A question was raised as to whether we are compliant with the rules, and indeed the Speaker confirmed that we are compliant. So I proceeded with the amendment in the main report.
I reached out to some members of the budget committee, most of whom preferred to remain anonymous. I gathered that between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m., several drafts of the budget report were signed and shredded because of the changes which were constantly being made. Members of the committee were called by phone and by WhatsApp messages every time there was a new draft. However, some members of the committee insist that there was no official communication to have a committee meeting between 1 and 2 p.m.
I want Honorable Gorobi to bring his phone or any member's phone and show us at what point he invited that meeting and whether any meeting was actually organized and where we sat and the minutes and who took them and which was. I actually want him to come to court under oath and he lies to this world and he knows what it means to lie in court, that there was a meeting, an emergency meeting to revise the committee's budget.
According to sources, the final draft was signed off at about 2 p.m., time to enter into plenary.
If I had introduced a report that was not signed, you'd call it a mafia. The same committee members who signed the original report signed the amendment. Amending a report is normal. For example, I will tell you.
It has to be as an annex to the main report.
Exactly. It was. But we are dealing with the figures. If you have a figure in the original report that is affected by the amendment, you have to change that figure in the original report.
Exactly.
It's not like a narrative.
It's exactly not why I'm saying it was a mafia system, because you didn't have time to even clean your mess.
Yeah, but that time was enough for me to effect it.
But you failed to actually balance the books.
The books balanced.
On the floor of Parliament. That's why you asked the Speaker.
Just put yourself in my shoes. I don't control the Parliamentary Commission sittings. Now, they sit at a time when I'm about, to sign off the report. They sit at that time. And one of the issues considered is a matter that comes to my committee, and then you are asked to use your wisdom to cause everything to happen, but legally. I did not violate, any of our rules. I didn't.
You looked shabby as the chairman of the budget.
I could have looked shabby, but because the report, the presentation of that report was already on the order paper. That was the time that had been provided, so I couldn't do otherwise. If the Speaker had adjusted the order paper to postpone, would have gone back to sign a different report.
Once this was done, communication was sent to the members of the Parliamentary Commission that all was set. It was 2 p.m. MPs were ready for the plenary session, only for it to be delayed by an hour, an issue that the Speaker apologized to, since she had a lengthy Parliamentary Commission meeting. When it was time for the chairperson, Amos Lugolobi, to present his supplementary budget report, it was a plan well known to the Speaker, Rebecca Kadaga, the Second Deputy Prime Minister, Moses Ali, the 4 commissioners, including Solomon Sserwanja, Francis Mwijuche, Safia Naluke, Arino Itirakajara, Finance Minister David Bahati, the chairperson of the Budget Committee, Amos Lugolobi, and some members of the Budget Committee.
Now,
despite the resistance put up by the opposition, the Speaker and other senior members of the bench, as well as MPs, wanted the 10 billion shillings to be approved against all odds. This perhaps explains the Speaker's statements days later about the 10 billion shillings.
So members do not continue talking about it because you don't know about it. Allow the Speaker and the Commissioner to speak on your behalf. It's not your business, just go on with your lives.
This appropriation angered President Yoweri Museveni, who reacted in a letter to the Speaker dated the 28th of April. The President writes, and I quote, It is unconstitutional, both in logic and in law. It cannot be correct that the head of government, the president, through the minister responsible, submits a plan for expenditure to parliament, and then parliament reshuffles the priorities and creates its own against the plan of the president. It means that there is no need to have the president and the executive branch of government. Parliament would have become the executive and the legislature. It is this principle that several people have gone to court to challenge this move.
Under Article 93, Parliament does not have the power to allocate itself money in that manner without the initiation and recommendation of the executive, in this case the Minister of Finance or Cabinet. That is illegal. That is an abuse of office.
And saying that finance advised you that way is very critical to understand exactly.
That's why I'm surprised that you hear people think that anything happened behind the back of anybody, that anything happened without the involvement of the executive. In the commission meeting, you have the executive on board. You have the whole prime minister. You have the whole finance minister representing the president virtually, who is the minister of finance. So whatever we were doing with the executive.
By acting in personal interest, Parliament showed a conflict of interest, and it abused those particular provisions on transparency and integrity and accountability. Under the Constitution, members of Parliament are supposed to enjoy public trust. That is under Directive Principle number 26. They have abused that public trust.
The desire to have the 10 billion shillings for MPs and the COVID-19 government response budget also blinded the entire House from debating and critically scrutinizing the 923 billion shillings budget. But at the end of the day,
I put the question that the majority of a report be adopted. Those in favor say aye, the contrary no. Ayes have it.
The ayes have it. Solomon Sserwanja, NBS investigates.